Thank you so much for joining us on the Voice of Job Seekers. This is Mark, your host, and if you want to know more about the Voice of Job Seekers, you can go to thevoiceofjobseekers.com. You can feel free to use the microphone that's on your right to leave a message. You can also use my other contact information there for your convenience as well. Today, I have a very special guest and somebody I've wanted to have on the show for a while. She is the CEO and founder of the Blendoor app, and some of you may have even heard about it. And I'm going to have her describe it in a little bit, but I want to tell you a little bit first about her. She founded the company just in the past couple of years, and she's been featured in Black Enterprise, TechCrunch, and Forbes, and many other media outlets. I want to introduce to you Stephanie Lampkin. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you, and I appreciate you cutting out a little time out of your schedule. I did want to explore a little bit of your story and how you got started and how did you see the need to have such a useful app?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area. We actually moved there. I ended up there because my mom was homeless for a short period while pregnant with me and needed a place to live. And at the time, my auntie was enrolled at the University of Maryland in their computer science program. So it ended up sort of being my first introduction to tech. Was that my first image of a computer scientist was a Black woman, and this auntie got me into coding at 13. The organization called Black Data Processing Associates, which led me kind of into the tech world. I went to Stanford, got an engineering degree, spent 5.5 years at Microsoft, and then quit Microsoft to most recently go to MIT. And about 6 months after I graduated from MIT, I interviewed for an analytical lead position at Google, which I thought went really well, but the recruiter came back and said I wasn't technical enough, that I was better suited for a more sales or marketing role. And that was sort of like, it was my aha moment around just how bias can play into so many different levels of recruiting. And so about 6 months later was when Google and many other companies released their diversity numbers showing that they were about 2% Black, 3% Latino, and 30% female. And so I decided to build Blendoor, and we've just taken off since then.
Now, Blendoor, just to clarify for a little bit for the audience, that's in beta currently?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And describe the app a little bit for me. And I know you mentioned about women and about minorities, and this kind of gives those communities a leverage in a very unique way. Could you describe that in a little bit?
Yeah, so Blendoor actually hides candidate name, photo, and age to mitigate unconscious bias in the sourcing of talent. So studies have shown that identical resumes with just a name change can yield a 50% difference in response rate. And that same study found that having a right-sounding name on a resume is equivalent to 8 years of additional work experience. So by hiding candidate name and photo, we're basically highlighting the skills and experiences that are actually more relevant to your potential performance on the job, and eliminating any potential discrimination or bias that can go into being recognized for your gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, I that's what resonated with me so much, because one of the first clients I ever had when I had a resume company, and we were writing a resume, and I was giving a little coaching, and her name was LaToya. And so by changing it to Tony, she was able to get several jobs after that. And I think since then she uses Tony and not LaToya as her first name, because that denotes that she's likely African American. So a lot of things matter in her name.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think too, as well, as when people are looking at photos and they are judging and filtering. I mean, that's what we're taught to do. That's part of the natural intel. But what becomes a differentiator is that when people say they look at a photo and they automatically, whether I guess we can use the term unconscious bias, that they say, nope, this person needs a little bit more of this, or I need somebody else for this because I had this picture in mind. That by using your app, that takes that element from being leveraged.
Yeah, and whether it's conscious bias or unconscious bias, it's you never really know. But by eliminating it altogether, we're basically giving everyone sort of a level playing field to be represented, and at the same time, it directly combats the myth that diversity hiring means lowering the bar or it's fulfilling quotas, right? So if you know that you're looking at a candidate and only judging them based on their qualifications, that candidate just so happens to be a woman or of an underrepresented group, it's consequential. It's not that you've pointed this person out simply because of their race or gender. So it's very important that we demonstrate that this is all merit-based hiring, what true merit-based hiring should be.
Right. For women, and I know for people of color and for women, there are some often mitigating factors regarding hiring upon contact that are kind of unique between both groups, and particularly women. Why do you think women are still, even if it was a white woman, per se, not even just a woman who's a person of color. We know that's a double whammy. But what are some of the biases that are still out there that still faces them?
That's a really good question. I actually just read an article recently that talked about why is it that increased contact with women does not decrease sexism. So meaning having more exposure with women, whether it be because you're you have a wife or you have a daughter, doesn't necessarily make you less sexist. And the response was there is this lingering, what they call benevolent sexism. And what that means is oftentimes men hold women in a regard of, oh, they're so gentle, they're delicate, they need protecting. And in doing so, maintain this sort of gender hierarchy. Right? If you're constantly considering women as unable to protect themselves or handle themselves or be independent or be leaders, even if it means you have all good intentions, right? You just want to be a protector. You're still perpetuating inequalities of genders, and so that's why we see sort of this prevalence of inequality, whether it be in hiring or even in pay. So it's something that a lot of companies recognize as a problem. They're making really great strides to mitigate, in a large part because for the first time in history, women are twice as likely than men to graduate from college. Women have higher test scores, and in cases where they have blinded test results or code produced, the women are rated a lot higher than men. And this was also done decades ago with orchestras when they adopted blind auditioning by making everyone perform behind a curtain and even wear soft shoes so you don't know who's walking towards the room. It increased gender diversity by 5x.
Wow. So in essence, for just to kind of get into very short, and I know that your time is limited. How does the app work? We know what the actual functionality and how it will leverage for everybody to have kind of a fair chance to be noticed. But what are some features of the app that will make it stand out from the others that are on the market?
Yeah, that's another really good question. So as a candidate, right now, you simply log on with LinkedIn or Facebook. We pull in
Mm-hmm.
all of your data, ask you a few demographic questions, and then we immediately show you jobs that fit your profile
Mm-hmm.
and your preferences. And in sort of Tinder-like way, you swipe right, swipe left.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it's sort of eliminating you check a bunch of boxes and get 100 results and sort of have to go page by page through hundreds of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of made it way more curated in a very mobile-friendly way. And we're also showcasing more than just the job. We give you insights about the culture and inclusivity of the company. So we're patenting a feature called Blendoor, which
Mm-hmm.
is an inclusivity index based on various different metrics, like how many women and people of color are on executive leadership, what programs companies have adopted around inclusivity, whether it be maternity leave, Rooney Rule for hiring, partnerships that they've made around social corporate responsibility. You'll get more insights into that for each company. And that gives us sort of a unique advantage over a lot of existing platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side, for companies, we're able to provide some really robust analytics around the demographics of candidates that are coming into the pipeline and how far along they're making it in the recruiting process. And sometimes companies will say, well, we have a lot of diverse people applying, but they're not making it beyond the hiring manager level. And really, no one's being held accountable for why that is.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have data that can actually show, hey, 80% of the people that qualified for this role were women. Why was it that only 10% were given an interview and ultimately 0% were hired?
Mm-hmm.
And so for the first time ever, we now have data and metrics that can make people and companies accountable for unequal hiring practices.
Wow. And I'm going to ask a really stupid question. It may not be stupid, but will that data in some kind of way be public in the sense
Yes.
maybe? Okay.
So that's part of what goes into the blend score. We won't necessarily make it public that 80% of women were qualified for this role, but 0% were hired.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we would have any enterprise customers if we did that. But
Right.
that is information that is part of the algorithm that determines a company's blend score.
Okay.
And that is made public.
Okay. Will there be will you have a blog or anything that will help job seekers not only use the app better, but maybe even present themselves in the whole job search process?
Yes, we will. As our team expands, we will have the social media team. As of right now, you can follow us on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
at Blendoor and Instagram at Blendoor app. We post a lot of interesting content there, but definitely as we finish up our fundraising, which has been an arduous process full of bias in and of itself,
Mm-hmm.
once we really raise the money needed to operate successfully, you'll see a lot more of those things on our social media for sure.
Cool. One other question, and I know you've got to run, but will you have salary information on those positions posted, or will you have some kind of salary, I want to say algorithm, or even search by salary, or any salary information that will be associated with positions that are posted?
Yeah, that's a good question. So typically companies aren't 100% comfortable with posting salary range information
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many different factors that play into what one's salary could be for one single role. But we are capturing that data from the companies. And as a candidate, you can put in what your salary preferences are, and thus we will only show you jobs that fit within that range.
Awesome.
But as companies become more comfortable, and I think we'll see a trend of increased transparency around salary, in large part because of the gender pay gap
Mm-hmm.
phenomenon. Then we'll start to probably reflect that on the app. So right now, it is hidden.
Okay. All right. And and I promise you that was the last question, but I just thought of one other thing. As people begin to build their profiles, what is going to be a feature in which people can actually implement some personal branding strategies to their profiles?
Yeah, so we play this balance of wanting to present as much unique data about you while not revealing your gender, race,
Mm-hmm.
or sexual orientation. So we're experimenting with allowing that sort of information to be made available once the match happens, because that's sort of how it works now. Your identity is revealed after the match.
Mm-hmm.
So we can potentially allow you to link to your portfolio or your GitHub account or your personal website, whatever unique assets that you want to demonstrate, will allow you to do that after the match. So we don't compromise the identity piece that's so important in mitigating bias at the beginning.
That it sounds like a fabulous product, and I'm looking forward to seeing that live with all the trinkets and bells and whistles. And I think it's going to be something that'll be great for job seekers who are concerned about how their identity plays into the hiring process. So I do thank you very much for your time. And if people want to get a hold of you or want to contact your company, I guess that you can use the Twitter at Blendoor, or go to the website blendoor.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Well, Stephanie Lampkin, thank you very much for being on the Voice of Job Seekers. And for the rest of you, that'll be the show for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at thevoiceofjobseekers.com, or you can use my Twitter at Mark A. Dyson. Thank you so much. Have a great week.